Love says, I love you. I love you if you're in China. I love you if you're across town. I love you if you're in Harlem. I love you. I would like to be near you. I'd like to have your arms around me. I'd like to hear your voice in my ear. But that's not possible now. So I love you. Go.
It has a profound effect on present day. Everything that we do, and I use myself as an example. Growing up in my house, it was 5 boys and 5 girls. And me and my father, we never had a conversation. Never in 21 years. I was the lightest skinned one out of all his children. And so by being that, he assumed that my mother may have stepped outside of him. So I had a lot of hatred towards my father in regards to how I see them treat my mother. But until I came into this body of knowledge and understanding that I realized that as a black man, we produce over 16 different shades of color. My father was ignorant to that reality. So I saw a lot of physical, altercations, fights, because he didn't know how to relate to this woman. So that makes me think about three different spheres: wanting to be, knowing how to be, and actually being. Wanting to be a man, wanting to be a husband, wanting to be a wife. But do you know how to, and do you acquire the knowledge to really execute this and bring this into physical reality? So when I was coming up and how I viewed the woman, because I didn't have the knowledge that would make me view her in a sense beyond her physical physique, that I thought it was as long as you with me, or long as you just responded to a look or something of that nature like that, that's all it was. But until I came into that knowledge, it said she's not her shell. The man is not his shell. You are that person that's within inside that. So we look at how we were disconnected from. And when you disconnect something from something, it has no power. So we were disconnected from the way, right? So if you say, well, you look that word up, way is a bridge, it's a thoroughfare that connects 2 points. So you're here at point A and point B is here. I have the desire to be in relationship, but point B is the relationship. Now, what price are we willing to pay to form that road, that thoroughfare, or walk that thoroughfare to establish a cohesive relationship?
Yeah, it exactly what you were saying as far as the way. And I think when you were talking, all I kept hearing was resilience. And we really lost our resilience, that spirit that we had in the beginning that got us through, that didn't annihilate us as a people. And we lost that because now if I don't get my way, and if you don't get your way, and if you don't look the way I think you should look, and if I don't look the way you think it's all about how we're perceived. And that is what I noticed in the African American relationship, is that because our relationships were objects to be manipulated, we are constantly looking for approval. We are constantly looking for a metric system to measure our partners, because that's what we're used to, and we're looking around now as to what to do. There's no, direct slave master in our presence to tell us this is the way this male should look and this male should be placed with that woman. And so I think that same mindset carried with us today, in which we are looking now and saying, well, I am a light-skinned woman, 32 years old, educated. I should be looking for my big buck instead of looking for my counterpart, my connection, my creative energy, so that I can truly excel and become what I'm supposed to be. And I think that that's what happened. We brought into the propaganda of, now we can't stop you from marrying, but we can dilute your vision that you never connect with the individual that you're supposed to be with, so that you'll never actually elevate yourself to a higher level of consciousness. And so what are we doing now with our freedom? What are we doing now with the ability to choose and the ability to become one with someone? And so that's what I see, and that is our biggest struggle. It's society tells us if he's not working, if he doesn't make a certain amount of money, then he's not husband material, that you shouldn't be with him. Meanwhile, on the flip side of the system, the African-American male is given every opportunity to fail, every opportunity, every door to close. And so now we're fighting a losing system. I'm looking for this male, which is why African-American women make up such a high number of single women. Because what are we looking for? Because if we were looking for our creative energy, they're out there. They're there. And whether they ignite when we are together, but they keep us divided. So that I never speak life into you and you never believe and harness your creative energy that was stolen from you, and I never believe who I am. So I'm constantly walking around trying to look like someone else. And so how do we recreate? How do we build each other and pour into each other and remember the power we have as a unit?
I want to say amen. Is that appropriate?
Is that appropriate?
Is that appropriate? I want to say amen. But in my opinion, how slavery has affected the way African American communities view relationships today, there were two words that were used in the first part of the questions, and one word was fear. And we talked about how relationships had to be hidden during slavery time. And I think that now that still affects us subconsciously, because for some reason we find it hard to express our love to one another. We find it so hard in relationships to let our wall down. You know, we have trust issues, and you know, because Daddy may have did this and Uncle Timmy had did this, so we have trust issues subconsciously, not realizing that they're related to what happened years ago and through the lines of our grandmothers and what our aunts went through and what our sisters went through. All these things triggered down now to us, and so we have this wall up. You know, we can't trust men the way we want to trust them because, you know what they say, all men are dogs, right? And, you know, dogs don't change, and all men want bones. And so we have this image in our mind because grandma relationship didn't work out and her mother relationship didn't work out. And so they told us, you know, don't trust him. You can't trust him as far as you can see him. And so we got all these thoughts in our mind. And so we're scared to love. And men are scared because they were taught that women are hoes and you can't trust her, you know, because she's a big booty and a smile. You know the song, The Girl is Poison. You know, so we've been taught all these things along the line not to trust each other. And even though we're with each other, we're laying with each other, we're sleeping with each other, we're hugging and loving on each other, but the truth is we're undisclosed enemies. We're doing all these things with each other, and yet we're still sleeping with the enemy because we haven't allowed ourselves to be real. You never see me without my makeup on. He dare not see me without my weave, and she can't see me broke, busted, and disgusted, so I have to portray an image to this man. I have to portray an image to this woman and make her think that I'm somebody. And Sister Shamina said, I'm calling her sister, well, you kind of calling people, we in church. Amen. He said, you know, you said that, I lost my train of thought, but you just talked about how we're not only afraid to love, and you mentioned that earlier, but you talked about how now we're sitting here with this mindset of, I'm not only scared to do what I'm supposed to do, but because of what happened before, because I'm not free in my own self, I'll keep myself confined. I think that those things have a major effect on relationships today and power, and we don't have the endurance anymore. I'm not willing to fight anymore. See, back then in the slave times, they had no other choice but to fight. So we have choices now. You know, we can choose either stay or go. I mean, there's so many single parent homes right now. It's almost common and uncommon when you're married. You got two parents in your house, your mother and your father live with you. So it's uncommon now. But back then they had no other choice but to be together. And because of that, they had to fight for what was theirs. They enjoyed the moments that were mentioned before. They enjoyed the little things. You know, the little things made them smile. He couldn't buy them jewelry, and there were no Chanel bags. And so what he did was buy them, picked her flowers from the garden. That meant something. But nowadays, again, you talked about how society has portrayed this image to us. Nowadays, we're looking, if he doesn't have money, he don't have a job, he doesn't have a 401c3 or all these other different high-level things, we're thinking to ourselves that he's nobody. That he's nobody. He's not worth our time. But that's so untrue. And I agree with what you said, that women carry 75% of a nation inside of us. And it's up to us to encourage our women. And I'll be the first to admit, I have not always been that woman to say, you can do it. I believe in you. But the older I get and the wiser I become, I realize that my husband's life depends on what comes out of my mouth. It depends on what I speak out of my mouth. If I say to him, you make me so sick, eventually he's going to think I'm worthless. You so stupid. Well, eventually he's going to be like, well, why should I start this business? My wife said I'm stupid. And regardless if he said out his mouth or not, subconsciously it's eating him up. And so he can't be the man that God has destined him to be because the woman is tearing him down. So it's our job to do these things. Slavery 500 years ago, yes, it had an effect. Yes, it has an effect now on how we think. Do we have to choose to believe those thoughts? Absolutely not. But does it have an effect? Absolutely. Absolutely it has an effect. Absolutely. Those women that were slaves years ago, like I mentioned in the first part of the question, they wiped them in cuts. Brother Kenneth spoke about how darkness, the state of mind, how you could be in a room, a dark room, and basically that's how it was. They had they were in the midst of turmoil, the midst of tribulation, and still they had to love. They had to find something inside them because love is an old song that I think it was a spiritual, if I'm not mistaken, but it said, "Love lifted me when nothing else could help. Love lifted me." Sometimes that's all you have is love, and that's all they had was the love that they had for each other, whether it been a friend, whether it been their children. They held on to love. They held on to hope. But now when the going gets tough and tribulations come and the bills are due, we're ready to walk out. I'm going to my mama's house. I ain't got time for this. The boat going down, I'm jumping off. I ain't got time to sink with you. We're not willing to fight anymore.
Yeah.
We don't want to fight.
Yeah.
Just to say, I'm just going to go home and hug my husband because I want to fight. You know, we're not willing to fight anymore, and that's the difference between then and now. They fought without question. They didn't question whether they knew that he had to do other things. I'm mainly about the house now. We call him every 5 minutes. Where you at? Who you was with? Why you smell like that? I mean, we got so many things going on in our mind now. But back then, they knew he had to leave. He got a job to do. He got to do something. But now your man can't even leave. Your woman can't even leave without there being questions because society has painted this image. Like you said, they prerequisite us to relate to a relationship that doesn't even exist. We're looking for the picket fence and the dog in the yard, and those things don't even exist. That's not love. That's not a successful relationship. A successful relationship is when I can cry and you catch every tear that comes from my eye. When I'm hungry, we're hungry. This is what love is. Love has nothing to do with what we see on TV. And so because of that, here we are. I told you I talk a lot. Okay, I'm going to put the mic down.
Writing this act was powerful. But you made me think about three things. One thing that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, that he said, one day that the black man and woman is going to allow the devil to come in their home and educate them. He said, little did we know when they invented the television and the people who control the programs that comes through the television. Not only has that, because before that television, we communicated one to the other. We exemplified and expressed love. Love is not a look, it's an action, it's an expression, as you said. When your husband cry, when you cry, you hug him. That's love. When you see that old woman and you stand up and give her your seat, that's love. It's not this mushy stuff that we've been made to think that it is. It also made me think about when you were speaking about the Bible. It said, when I was a child, I thought as a child. But when I became man or woman, I put those childish things away. But the key word is became. Now, what is the process that you become woman, you become man? It's a continuous pursuit in being that. In the Holy Quran, it says we have been given eyes, but we can't see. We've been given ears, but we can't hear. We've been given a mind, but we don't employ it to see and understand truth. And I think it's in the 13th chapter of Matthew where it says, you have been given eyes, but never be seeing, ears, but never be hearing. So it's two different books that denote the same purpose and meaning like that. Dr. Joyce DeGroy Leary out of Oakland, California, I believe she said that dealing with post-traumatic slavery disorder, that when a woman has been sexually abused, and in this sin-sick time that we're living in, males are being sexually abused. Brothers and sisters that have been to war and sin, inhumane treatment of another human vessel, you're psychologically scarred by that. And when we came back from war, they didn't get the treatment. If they did get treatment, it wasn't efficient enough because they still seeing the present day as if it was the past. So not only that, but us as a people that went through the tortures of the slavery experience, have we ever received the medicine, the antidote to really relieve us of that inordinate pressure to where as though as men in marriage and women in marriage, we're able to relate to one another. I've experienced the marriage ritual. I exchanged jewelry. I went, before the pastor and I gave her a ring and she gave me a ring. I had meaning in it, but I say that we just exchanged jewelry because you're coming from one perspective and she's coming from another perspective, that I married a handsome vessel, but I didn't look at the vessel to whom I was marrying. in that state of triple darkness, I was finding out who you were. The mirror can't tell me what you look like. I hear and I see what you look like.
When you said you said something about the antidote. And I feel like, as you were saying that, we have been given the cure. It's each other. And it's almost like being hidden in plain sight. We are the cure one to another. Man, woman, that creative energy is the cure. But what happens now that the cure is so right next to us, so close to us, but yet so far? And like you said, between the media, between the television, between fear, the hand-me-down fear, that's what we kept. And we lost the pride, the dignity, the resilience, but we've handed down that fear because there was an investment made that fear would be handed down. And so grandma told great-grandma, told her daughters and told her children, and we passed down this hand-me-down fear, this fear of failure, this fear of I married somebody and now I'm embarrassed because it's not working out. But once we can realize that the cure is in the not working out, the cure is in the mistakes, the cure is in the public demonstration of not being perfect, because there is no such thing as perfection. The cure is in being a demonstration and allowing your marriage to be a poster board for life and true love, which is endurance, which is you're not going to always make me happy and I'm not going to always make you happy, but together we can show the world the demonstration of what happens when creative energy, when love comes back together.
Custom agent.
Yeah, and becoming together and showing people that. But we're so afraid to fail. We're so afraid to have someone on our arms that doesn't look like who someone else would have picked for us. We're so afraid to be, an educated woman with a man without a job. Oh, an educated man with a woman who's still struggling trying to make her way. We are not trying to save that hoe. We on that. We're not trying to save them. To make it real. Because, see, when we use these creative words, we lose folks. The realness is, let's talk about how we really perceive it. I'm not trying to save her and her kids. I'm not trying to bring him on a come up and take him from nothing to something. Why aren't we? Why aren't we? Where's the sin in that? Where was the problem in that? And so that's the cure. But they've trained us to believe that that's a negative annotation on who we are. Well, really, that's the cure. If I got two legs and you have one, I'm going to hold you, and then we can both walk. And then eventually, you might be able to stand again, and then we can move on. And then if we continue that one to another, then we become a stronger unit. Wow. But as long as we look at each other like, oh, this is mine. It's the crabs in a barrel mentality. This is mine. Yeah. And I can't connect with somebody else unless they're just as perfect as me. And so we annihilate ourselves, because what happens to all the imperfect people? I guess they end up in jail. They end up depressed or suicidal, when we could have saved each other. But we make an elite, perfect people environment in which only successful people meet other successful people. And that's no different than what the slave masters did to us when they had their plantations and they were the owners. And they had their houses and their things. And we said, oh, we got a nice house and it wasn't ours. So yeah, we create the elite environment.
Why don't we challenge it? Because we don't know that it's to be challenged. If you don't know something, then you're ignorant to the fact. You can't charge somebody or hold somebody accountable for what they do not know. So we don't challenge it because we don't know that it should be challenged. This is what we're used to. We're used to being told what to do. We're used to being told what the latest styles are, or what's the hottest kicks, or what we should listen to. We're used to this. This is all we know. For most of us all of us in this room, because none of us is past 100 years old, our whole life, TV has been there. We have seen images on a television. Our whole life, we've seen drug addicts. We've seen alcoholics. We've seen needles in the street. This is what we've seen. And so how do we know to challenge something that we're used to?
Just like it was with Esau, Jesus, he said, for my name's sake, you'll be hated amongst men and people. So he was considered, I guess, as an outcast, but he paid the price to leave forth some information and a way that man and woman could reconnect to this way that you've been distorted by a way, and then reconnect and be yourself. When you said being uncomfortable in your own skin or whatever it was to that effect, there'll never be another you. You are your best you. You can change you. I can change me. I'm comfortable with who I am because I'm not that reflection in the mirror. You're not that reflection in your mirror. You're the reflection of your obedience to the nature in which you were made. So we have to pay that price to be those outcasts, to be ridiculed, to be scorned, to be evil spoken of about a people that you're eventually not now you're not going to be perceived in a right sense, but later on you'll be loved and appreciated. But can we be willing to pay that price to be, it's painful. I mean, I go through it with my children. It's painful to see your young 15-year-old daughter saying to you, Dad, why we got to have these dumb conversations? I said, why is this a dumb conversation? But if it was reinforced from the other parent, I would never have heard those words from a child who you sacrificed to make yourself available to a body of knowledge and information to be able to impart some words and information on that child. So that's why it's so important that the woman be one who educates herself as well. So like she said, to construct this thing called family, because a family could never be. It's only the components of mother, father, son, daughter. It's just like the peripherals of a computer. When you have these pieces connected together, this computer works. But if the monitor's here, the keyboard is here, the speaker's here, the CPU is over there, but they're not interconnected with these wires, you won't get the thing to function. So man, woman, father, and child disconnected, you're not functioning the way that you should. So we have to be willing to pay that price to be hated, to gain the love and respect of these children.
I definitely agree with what both of you said, and the idea of why we don't challenge the things that are right in front of our faces. And because it takes courage to recognize that you're doing something wrong. And I don't know if I am fully sold that we don't know the right way, but in knowing, there's something that I always say: if you know better, do better. And this the do part. It's the willingness. Because see, if I admit that everything that I listen to isn't the right thing, if I admit that everything I'm seeing isn't right, then now I have to do something. There's an action that has to follow that, because see, you can't just know the way now. You can't just be enlightened and do nothing with it. Once you know better, it's a natural thing to do better. And so now, am I ready to do? And if I'm not ready to do, then I pretend I don't see. If I'm not ready to do, then I'll continue to walk and follow the mold. And I'll continue to buy clothing that costs more than my PSE&G bill and get the lights cut off. I'll continue to pretend that I don't see my brother, hurting, and I know I can speak a word to him that can build his confidence up in one sentence. I forget that I have that power. I'll subconsciously move forward and pretend I don't see him. And because if I do see him, no different than a beggar asking for $1, if I do see him, then I got to open up my pocket, because now I see you. I see you're hungry. So now I got to do something about it. And most of us are not ready to do that, because it takes courage and there's no itinerary on how to rebuild yourself. So once you see the negativity, now you're saying, okay, so how do we form a new form of entertainment in which our people can be enriched and we can still have fun? How do we form a new form of outlets and creative activities for our children that can build our confidence and not exploit us for the things that we're known to do well? How do we really dig into a child's creativity? So it's going to take thought. It's not just realizing it. It's realizing it and then doing something about it. And I think that's what stops us. That's what helps us to say, I didn't know. I like this, I like that, and I didn't know how to do better, because you got to do something. And we lost that. We lost that resilience that hey, say something's wrong and then come up with a solution. We're so busy, she don't have this, and our people are like this, and we like this, and we get righteous. We're so much better. But it takes a lot to say, yeah, we are this way. So what are you going to do to be a part of the cure? What are you going to do something about it? But we sit back and we point fingers, because it's easy to be in that position than to be in a position and say, if she's hungry, then I'm starving. And if she doesn't have anything, in a way, I don't have nothing. If she feels terrible about herself, then in a way, I don't, making it personal. But we don't want to do that, because that requires work.
And if I can just jump in and say one thing. Throughout these questions, one word has been mentioned a lot: fear. And being fearful of whether it's make a change or remain the same. I have to go here, and I'm just going to go here for a quick moment, but the Bible says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So how do we get rid of fear? Realizing that it wasn't intentional for us to have it inside of us. Realizing that something wasn't meant to be inside of you, it makes you the light turn on and say, oh, since this don't belong to me, then it's not mine and I can give it away. and push fear away. Easier said than done, but the moment that we realize that fear doesn't belong in our system, God didn't create us to fear things. He didn't create us to fear people. He didn't create us to fear situations and circumstances. He actually made us bold, but society and circumstances and diverse atmospheres have made us fearful, whether it's subconsciously or consciously. And I keep saying subconsciously or consciously because a lot of times people are not conscious of the fact that they're scared. They're not conscious of the fact that they're living below their purpose. They're not conscious of these things. And I think the moment we realize that, you know what, I am scared of change. I do have a fear in me of loving. I do have a fear in me of being successful. Whatever your fear is, the moment we say to ourselves, you know what, I'm no longer going to fear the outcome. I'm not going to fear people laughing at me and saying, what you doing with him? Or what you doing with her? I'm not going to fear people looking at my love and thinking it's awkward. I'm not going to fear people looking at my current situation and thinking that I'm a nobody because I'm going somewhere. I was born for a purpose. I was born for a reason. Realizing that fear doesn't exist in our DNA will actually disconnect us from a lot of things that we're dealing with now. How do we realize that fear is? God is not fear. You said that without God, there is no love. So in order for us to realize that the fear is inside of us, to get rid of the fear inside of us, our first connection has to be the source, the person who created us, because he knows everything that's inside of us. I mean, he made us. He knows our being, our insides and our outs. And so the first thing to do is say to him, or whatever God you worship, and I'm not going to go into religion because I don't want to offend anyone, but whatever you are, whoever your God is, coming to the source. Personally, I believe in the Lord Savior Jesus Christ, and coming to him and saying, God, my fear of success, I have a fear of love. Remove this fear away from me. I have a fear of being an individual. I have a fear of not fitting in with the crowd and going every way the crowd is going. And then I believe that God will remove that fear from us. How do I know? Because he did it to me for so many things. I was scared of my skin complexion. I was scared of being the dark-skinned one in the room. I was scared of my weight. I was scared of my short hair, my nappy hair. And I had to realize that he made everything about me. And so I had to learn to love myself. How do I learn to love myself? I had to learn to love him first. And so the fear of what others thought about me, it has escaped my mind. And I have to tell the truth, it's escaping my mind. Because like you said, it's a constant journey in becoming a man. It's a constant journey of becoming a woman. I didn't wake up one day and say, you know, I got it all together. I'm fly, I'm a woman, that's just that. No. I'm constantly, every day, learning how to be a mother. I'm learning how to be a wife. I'm learning how to be even a friend. I'm learning even how to love me every single day. And so the first thing that we have to do is get rid of fear by connecting to our source and admitting that this is inside of us and then asking for it to be removed. I'm sorry. You mentioned before, and you said that, is it a cure? You said, is it an antidote? That thing touched me so much. Is there an antidote? And you say, yeah, it is a cure. The cure is us. And going back again to word, I had to. There was a question that was asked in the Old Testament when the people were going through so many things. They said, is there a balm in Gilead? In other words, is there a cure? Is there a relief for what we're dealing with? And the answer is yes, there is a relief for what we're dealing with. But we have to be willing to accept the relief. But if it don't look like we want it to look, dress like we want it to dress, and smell how we want it to smell, then it can't be our relief because, you know, I'm bigger than that. So we have to be willing to accept what's given to us and use what we got to get what we want. If you knew better, you'll do better.
Do better.
Amen. That's it.